So this is a pretty, can we actually get you to stand at the microphone? This was obviously a pretty monumental hearing today. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you decided to push up Ms. Hutchinson's testimony to today?
Well, it's testimony that we had recently discovered in the 4 depositions, and we felt, to be honest with you, we did not need to hold it any longer. She was a truthful witness, somebody who we felt message needed to be out, and many of the verifications she provided the committee we had not heard before.
Thompson, who are you hoping to interview in the future?
Well, some of the people she referenced in her comments, we will look seriously at bringing before the committee to talk. Pat Cipollone, other people. And we just obviously, with this information, there are just some people we need to talk to.
Did you tell the committee anything about why, first of all, why she decided to stay in the Trump White House as long as she did, and also why she decided to come forward and testify publicly?
Well, the only thing, she was obviously a major employee in the White House, and we felt important that we talk to her. And she came voluntarily initially, she came again. And then, you know, I think part of the legal advice she was receiving didn't allow her to be as forthcoming as we thought. So at some point she changed attorneys and she began to open up more and more about what was happening around January 6th.
Some of what she told the committee today was about the level of awareness inside the White House as to the number of weapons that were floating around the mall early in the day on January 6th. And obviously, and there was early knowledge that Capitol Police were being overrun, and yet there was not movement early in the day to get additional forces to secure the Capitol. Are we going to be hearing more from the committee about who was responsible for that?
Well, we'll talk about it. We have 2 hearings left at this point. Obviously, the testimony today heightens those hearings in terms of awareness. We now know the White House knew certain things were going on in terms of preparation. A number of people had not voluntarily gone through magnetometers because of having certain weapons, and that there were weapons confiscated for those who did go through the magnetometer. So it raises a real concern on our part as to why the president did not act more responsibly when he was told that the threat of violence was serious.
Have you sent those messages that you showed at the end of potential witness tampering, those 2 messages that Cheney read, have you sent those to DOJ for any investigation into potential witness tampering?
No, we just presented them in the hearing. The committee will consider that along with a lot of other things we have on there.
Are those the only, do you have more messages as well from whether it's those transcripts of the phone calls or what witnesses have told you of potential witness tampering?
Well, not necessarily witness tampering, but we have a lot of information that we have worked out with Ms. Hutchinson that we did not show for this hearing. And we felt that we put forth what we wanted to. Now, there are other information that potentially will be used in hearings 6 and 7. And some we'll just make it a part of the record.
And have you started getting, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that the documents that were supposed to come from the National Archives, there's another tranche of them. Were they supposed to come in early July? Have you received any more of those documents?
Well, we receive narrow documents on a regular basis. So we still have some expectations that more will come. It's just they come as they are prepared.
What about Meadows? Has there been any more? I know
a couple other people got questions.
Meadows, has there been any update from DOJ as to why they haven't moved forward with the case?
As far as I know, there's been no movement on Mr. Meadows. Obviously, the fact that we have information from Ms. Hutchinson today that he was aware of a lot of things going on. As to whether he comes forth with any other information remains to be seen.
And have you heard anything from DOJ on why they haven't moved forward with pressing those charges?
No, there's been no real communication with DOJ. You know, they do their job committee, we do ours.
Do you have a message for them?
Well, we are prepared to work with them as cooperatively as possible. We have been tasked with a responsibility of looking at the facts and circumstances around January 6th, and that's what we are doing. In that process, I'm sure there'll be opportunities for us to talk and eventually share a lot of the information that we've uncovered.
Do you have any updates about
testimony from Mike Pence?
Well, it'd be nice if we could. He's the vice president. He obviously, I think after this hearing, will know that some people in the White House actually knew that there were people breaking into the Capitol who wanted to do physical harm to him. I would hope that would help get him in the right frame of mind to want to come talk to us. No vice president, no public official should be threatened just because of a public policy disagreement like we had with this last election. That's not who we are as Americans, and I think anybody who loves this country, loves this government, should come forward, Democrat, Republican, and help us make sure that it never happens again.
Do you think that today's hearing will at all affect Pat Cipolloni's decision whether to testify or not?
Well, let's say that he was prominently talked about in the hearing, and we will seriously consider inviting him for a transcribed interview or something like that. But I don't want to get ahead of the committee. We just had the hearing, but I anticipate a serious discussion about him.
You think that's something that could happen after public hearings are over?
Well, yeah. You know, we initially had two hearings proposed. This testimony today was so important, we felt the need to add it, and that's why we did. So as we do our work toward producing the report, if something comes along that's important, we'll include it, whether it's a hearing, a transcribed interview, or what have you. Nothing's in stone. We're just getting as much information about what happened as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just one question. The timing on this today. Can you help us understand what changed so that this hearing wasn't previously planned with a witness you had talked to before? And I'm sorry if you already answered this question.
Well, the witness has a new attorney who allowed the witness to be more forthcoming in her testimony. And once our lawyers talked with her lawyer and Ms. Hutchinson, we just agreed that it would be important for us to have that hearing.
And why not wait until you came back from recess? Why do it now? There was a sense of urgency, a sense of this had to be.
Well, I think if you listen to what we heard today, I hope you would agree that some of it was quite urgent that we get it out into the public.
How so?
Well, I mean, some of it we hadn't heard before.
Sure.
And so the fact that we now have someone who worked in the White House, who clearly understands that many things were known in terms of the danger that the vice president faced, that people were breaking into the Capitol who potentially were armed. They knew about it, and nothing was done for a long, long time. And we had not had a witness up until Ms. Hutchinson to step forward and say that. Thank you.
Has there been any
Should we be ready for the next set of hearings?
Yes, just exit the hallway.
Wednesday night, Congresswoman Liz Cheney speaks at the Reagan Library. The Wyoming Republican is the vice chair